Welcome to the Couchboard podcast, where we naively talk about anything and everything for your listening pleasure. I'm Max, and as always, I have the pleasure of having Jordan with me, and Colby should be joining us soon. He is dealing with his pesky children that are resisting sleep this evening, so he's now 35 minutes late, Colby. Let you remember this when we play back this recording. But Jordan, my friend, how are you? How are things going?
Oh, Maximus. Oh, everything is great. Top of the world right now.
Good. What's new in your life? What have you been doing as Arizona shut down quarantine last Friday. Did you do anything exciting over the weekend to take advantage of your newfound freedom?
Oh, man. I was going to the movies. I was going to the restaurants and licking everything. No, I didn't really do anything. Unfortunately, we've just been... I don't know. I mean, yes, we're allowed to go out, but we've gotten so used to this.
I know. It's changed us.
And I'm still working from home, so it's a little, so who knows what my work will do as far as when we'll come back. But, yeah, nothing too special as far as getting out into the world. But I did. So last time we talked about cooking and food.
Yeah.
I got real into that. I made a pizza from scratch. That was exciting.
Did you make the crust from scratch?
I did. Yeah, I made the crust from scratch.
This is good, because sometimes I'm talking with people and they're like, no, I bought the pizza dough, and I'm like, no, like, and let me guess, you also just like opened up a jar of sauce. Like, none of this was really from scratch, Mr. or Miss, but good. So yeah, the crust is that's fun.
That was good, and for the first time, I added some seasonings to the dough.
And how'd that go? What'd you put, like garlic or?
Let's see, it was a little basil, and I think a little garlic salt. No, garlic powder. It was good. It was different. The dough was a little thick though. So we've got a little pizza stone, and so it's only so big, but the dough was too much for it. So it was pretty thick.
Well, that's pretty. Is this your first time doing it?
No, I've done it before, but this was just a different recipe, which was pretty easy, pretty straightforward, but that was good. And while the dough was rising, I went all in and did some chocolate chip cookies as well.
Did you do what I told you to do, though?
Brown the butter?
Brown the butter, dark brown sugar, and you chop up the chocolate yourself. No chocolate chips.
No.
I know I'm very, everyone's going to hate me on this because I'm just like so particular about these things.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are all fair things to do. What I did softened butter though. It was from the freezer and then I had to warm it up, but
yeah,
I didn't bother going to browning it because, and this is a big, we're getting way too in the weeds with this anyway, but, So my goal was a nice, big, fluffy cookie. So I didn't melt the butter. I didn't go all the way. I just softened it. And then I let it mix in the mixer I went in 3 stages. Here are the stages, guys. And this was the fluffy cookie tip. You mix the butter for like 3 minutes. Then you add the brown and white sugar, mostly brown, a little bit of white. And
should be mostly brown.
Yeah,
Dark
mix that.
Brown.
I did light. Mix that for another 2 to 3 minutes. Get it extra airy.
Whipped.
Yeah. Yep. And then throw in your eggs and vanilla and whip that again for another 2 to 3 minutes. Then it's super fluffy and ready to go. And then, of course, when you're rolling out the cookies, you don't pack them real tight. You just nice and softly put together. Anyway, it's a fantastic meal. Cookies and pizza. Can't go wrong. So
that is a good meal. And I will go to my grave saying the chocolate chip cookie might be a perfect dessert. Like, it is just so dang
The one
good.
thing better than chocolate chip cookie is chocolate chip cookie dough.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I like them both for different reasons.
Well, then you're crazy because dough's better.
I was talking with someone recently and they had like never eaten chocolate chip cookie dough. I'm like, what home did you grow up in? Like, how was that not a thing where you were like licking the KitchenAid paddle or something? Like, everyone knows you just pound some cookie dough.
wait.
Or have ever had ice cream.
You're not allowed to eat the dough. There's raw eggs in it. What's wrong with you people?
Well, that's like the funny thing is like in New York, and a couple other like in San Fran, I think
I'm kidding. By the way, I do that all the time.
There's these like cookie dough places that serve cookie dough.
We have one
but
here.
like you have one in but
Provo.
they do it without eggs, which. And I was also watching like a video with one of them, and like they loaded up with like a ton of sprinkles and just like a bunch of garbage, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
no.
they kind of treat it like ice cream. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I'd rather just make homemade cookie dough and eat it. Because from the cookie dough place, it was all right, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because they don't have those eggs. They
don't have the eggs.
They have to make
it's
it safe.
It's way lighter. Like, I don't know. It loses some density, which is kind of, you need some of that dense texture in it. So, not quite as good as real cookie dough.
Yep.
Isn't that part of the fun of eating cookie dough is knowing you're putting your life on the line for
Yeah.
cookie dough?
You're like, this is so wrong.
But so right.
By the way, enter Colby. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Being fathers and husbands in our 30s, we're going to have some family interruption, I'm sure, fairly frequently on the show. So that's something to get used to probably for all you listeners out there. But haven't been up to much lately. Just doing some subtraction problems with my first grader.
Cool.
We're trying to get all the homework done here at the last couple weeks of school and turn it in, and because we slacked off.
Hey, the schools brought it on themselves. I mean, how dare they close, right? Make us teach our kids.
I know.
Ridiculous.
I'm like amazed by some of my coworkers that are like there's one woman I work with. She's a single mom. She's got like several kids and like working like a full, like a full-time job. I'm like, how do you do it? Like, how do you like juggle the kids? And oh my gosh.
That's got to be rough because we are not single parents, and my wife has she runs a business, but it's not full-time, and we are struggling. Like, it's freaking hard.
I can only, and it's like, I'm not a teacher. Like, even you talking about like subtraction, like, shoot, I don't even know where to begin with like trying to teach a kid how to subtract.
Yeah.
Like, I just know how to do it. I don't remember how they taught me how to do that.
And my son's like that personality where he's like really awesome at school, like with teachers and with his peers and stuff. But as soon as it's us giving him the assignments, it's like,
screw you,
his
Dad.
stubbornness meter goes to 10. Exactly. He's like a teenager. It's ridiculous.
Yep. Good.
So I've got a bunch of random stuff that I've been up to. Number one, I'm a big Survivor fan. There's like 2 reality shows that I like. I love The Bachelor, and I still watch Survivor. And the most recent season of Survivor just ended. And it was actually pretty cool because they brought back all winners. So it was just people that had won the show already.
So it was the second movie of Hunger Games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's actually, I didn't even think about that. That's a very good, but yeah, it was good. It was a fun season, but it was almost too meta, where like, I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say. It's like when everyone's like all like into like the game and like trying to figure out what everyone's doing, but then they know that you're trying to figure out what they're doing. And so it just like kind of like compounds into this insane thing. But so that was fun.
What are they, like season 30 or something? 30?
I think this was 40.
Wow.
Maybe it was 30.
Wow.
I think it was 40 though, because they do 2 a year.
Oh, yeah.
They do 2 a year. Yeah, there's a bunch of people like me. Like they've got like a, it's not super widespread, but there's like a cult following where, and like the game, the show, and it's still like the same show. There's a lot of little twists that they've added into it over the years, but it's more about strategy and gameplay versus like surviving. Like I actually, a couple years ago, went and rewatched like the first season, and it was just like funny. They're like the idea of like, building an alliance and like talking about who you're going to vote for. Like they found it like dishonorable. Like in that first season, people were like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Whereas like you'll die within a couple of days if you don't build a couple allies in this one. So it's fine to see how it's.
So
evolved.
it really is the Hunger Games.
It really is. Yeah, it's.
It was pretty. I'll say the first season was like amazing. Like it was like the first reality show almost. Like it just felt, it was like so monumental for TV. It was like it was huge. Like everyone loved it.
I feel like it was one
Everyone
of those first reality shows that became like mainstream. Like that.
Then they made too many.
Everyone knew of. Yeah, and then it went too long.
Yeah, I think they made like too many. Everyone kind of got tired of it, and then now.
Yeah,
I think there's
just
more
like
reality shows, but there's like less of like there's like fewer competition reality shows. We don't see those.
American Idol, which is.
I guess no, there's still a ton of them. Yeah.
It's outlived its life. It's.
Well, didn't it go away and they brought it back? Or am I wrong on that?
I think NBC dropped it and then ABC picked it up.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't even know. But yeah, so I watched that just finished, and I'm getting really kind of on edge because I'm running out of things that I'm going to watch. I'm 9 out of 10 episodes through The Last Dance. If you guys haven't watched that yet, you really need to. It's super fun.
I really need to. Brooke said she'd watch it with me too, which is awesome. So
it's excellent. It's really, and it will. Again, there's a lot that you think you know about Michael Jordan, but because I think we're all old enough to remember him like kind of well, but there's just a whole another layer to the guy that I don't know. I've appreciated him a lot more. And then the last thing, I am on the last chapter of To Kill a Mockingbird, which I haven't read since I was like in 7th grade. So that's a book that has been taking me probably too long to read, but
Atticus
wonderful
Finch.
book. Yeah.
Old school.
Alrighty. Well, should we jump into our topic for today?
Yes.
Anything else that you guys want to tell the world about and all of our millions of followers?
I came late to the game, but yesterday Brie won The Bachelor Listen to Your Heart, which is pretty dope.
She sure did. And she's got an album out, which...
I mean, she's got an album.
Have you listened to it? Has anyone listened to it?
We've been listening to it like tons before it came out because she's like super wanting everyone's opinion and stuff. So I've heard them a lot.
Is it any good? And we can... She won't listen to this podcast probably, so you can be objective.
No, it is good. They did a lot of like the cover songs that they had to do on the show, and some of those aren't my favorite just songs in general, but they do a good job with all of them. It's a good album.
Are all these songs original?
There's 5 originals and 5 covers. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll check it out. Maybe.
Yep. Chris and Bree, check it out.
All right. Bree, we're gonna send you a bill for that advertising.
Yeah, for that placement there.
Alrighty. Well, let's go ahead and jump into today's topic. So I feel like we've been kind of generalists lately, and I'd like to say today I'm breaking that trend, but we're not. We're gonna at some point we'll go deeper into a topic, but today we're talking about sports, which is a funny topic to talk about these days because I don't think I've ever loved or appreciated sports more than I do now since it's all been taken away and I don't get to watch it anymore. But I thought the most natural place for us to start this conversation is just to go back into the childhood. What were the sports you guys played as little cute kids? What'd you grow up playing, Jordan?
Let's see. So when I was a wee lad, played soccer, right? AYSO soccer. Always a treat, you know. The trophies still line the trophy room, and it is great memories there. So I did that for a couple of years in elementary school, and then I didn't play any official sports in middle school. But I mean, growing up though, it was just, you know, basketball was a big one. On the playground, you know, you play football, two-hand touch football or kickball. You play whatever, right, as a kid. In high school, though, I played volleyball. That was something that our good friend Dave got me into, and I was greatly surprised at how much I enjoyed it. At first, I was like, "Nah, that's lame." But once I got in there and started playing it, it was a blast, and probably one of my top sports to play. But I also played some basketball internationally. So when I was in England, I playing over there, battling
on the All-Star team, weren't you?
Oh yeah. I made the All-Star team. When we bested the Germans, and that's when they called me up. So it was fun. But yeah, those were the sports I officially played in high school. Was just volleyball and basketball. And then I hung up my jersey for basketball, and I came back to the States. I knew they couldn't handle me. So, but it was fun. I mean, sports have always been fun, and I think basketball is probably the one that has stuck with me the most as far as pickup games. That and the occasional turkey bowl or whatever for football, but mainly basketball.
Cool. Colby, you're up.
Mostly Tetris is what I played.
Mental sports.
Yeah. No, so I started playing T-ball when I was in baseball when I was growing up in California. Those were the only things I did there. A lot of T-ball and baseball. My dad was into baseball. He was on like a local team there in LA when we lived there growing up, and so I played a lot of baseball. Then when we moved to Arizona, I kept going with a lot of baseball. And then like in fifth grade, I picked, or fourth grade, I can't remember. I picked up ice hockey and played ice hockey for a couple years, which was super fun. Not a lot of places to play it in Tucson, but we somehow found it. A good friend of mine named Billy was really into hockey and convinced me to play, and it was a blast. And then middle school, I played football and basketball and soccer, I believe, which was, I'd never played soccer. I feel like most kids start out with soccer, but that middle school, like 7th grade, was the first time I played soccer, and I loved it until they made me the goalie, and then I hated it, and I didn't want to play anymore.
Too much pressure in that position.
Yeah, it was awful. It was just because I was tall. It wasn't because I was good at it. So
you take up a lot of space in the goal. You go figure that out.
I was also like skinnier than like everyone though, so it was reduced effectiveness there. And loved playing basketball in middle school and football. I was the backup tailback to our star player, so I did not play often. But before I had played Pop Warner football before that too, so I played like in 4th and 5th grade on the local Pop Warner team. And then once I got to high school, I didn't do a lot of organized sports except for track. I did hurdles and pole vault. And today, in high school we did a lot of just general playing sports for fun. But nowadays I pick up basketball a lot, and my wife's brothers are pretty into volleyball, so I'll play volleyball every once in a while too, which all of my friends were into, I feel like, in high school, and I was not. But I've played a little bit with them, and it's kind of fun.
Cool. So I think I played soccer when I was a kid. Like, I have like memories of like going to like soccer camp and stuff, but I don't ever really remember playing on a team, actually. I think I really only remember playing basketball as a kid. But I loved it, and basketball was fun. I have a very vivid memory when I was like 8 years old of hitting a game-winning shot. And it wasn't like at the buzzer, but it was towards like the very end of the game. So it's just funny. And I still like remember like taking the shot and like not really thinking like anything of it. Where I don't know. As you get older, I think that's a bigger mental hurdle that you have to get over. But when I was in middle school, I did a lot of sports in middle school. I did cross country and track all the years I was there. I did basketball every season that I was there, and then even one year I did wrestling, um, which yeah, wrestling's tough. Wrestling's is a weird sport, and I think I only won one match, but it is a really cool feeling when you win a match in wrestling because the referee will bring you out to the middle and then he'll have one guy on each side and he'll raise up the arm of the person who won. I remember the one time I won a match, I was like, oh, this is a cool feeling, like I won, yeah. So that was awesome. But same as Colby, I didn't really actually do a lot of organized sports. When I was in high school, I did run cross country one year. I wish I would have played volleyball with you guys, Jordan. I think I remember like Aaron trying to convince me to do that, and I'm like so tall. I don't know why I didn't want to give that a shot. I did work all throughout my junior and senior years of high school, and I think I just relegated myself to that and be like, I'm just going to be work. But it's definitely one of like my biggest regrets. And I remember like my dad like begging me to go play basketball, but my 7th and 8th grade years of middle school, so the last 2 years of middle school, my basketball team that I was on, we went defeated. We went straight up defeated. We did not win a single game for 2 years. And so, and
it killed the will to play.
It killed the will to play. And then it is funny, as time went on, I would play pickup games. And then I reached this point where I swear, like, mentally I forgot how to shoot a basketball. Like, I feel like I was like, it used to be a pretty good shot. I can't shoot a basketball. I mean, I can, but like, I can't make a basket to save my life anymore. So, and I remember my dad telling me, he's like, you'll regret it. Like, I promise you'll regret it if you don't. And I was like, no, I won't regret it. And yeah, I'm disappointed in myself. I wish I would have.
Here you regret volleyball, not playing volleyball.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I wish I would have played more sports. Like, I worked, but it's like, who cares about, like, there's nothing, there's no fond memories. There's very little to be gained out of working like a part-time job in high school, but I think you gain so much.
I think we're overlooking all the extreme sports we played, right? We're major rollerbladers.
That's true.
Aggressive skates was a thing.
Mountain biking.
Bobsledding small cars.
Yep. Yeah. There's a lot of physical exertion in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we came up with our own stuff. I don't know that any of us necessarily were like super wrapped into an organized sport. Like, I feel like we were hanging out a lot and coming up with our own things to do.
Okay. Super vivid memory of Jordan, you and I thinking this was a good idea to try jousting on our bikes. That happened.
Yeah, it sure did.
What would you use, like a broom?
I think we just used broom handles, yeah.
Yeah.
That would hurt.
Good. Yeah. I think we kind of wussed out and realized this is actually going to hurt the other person like a lot.
We're going to fall off our bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you fall off your bikes, isn't the rule in jousting you just gotta like fight to the death with your swords or something? Like, how does that work?
If you both fall off, then you fight to the death.
Yeah.
If someone remains seated, then they win.
Well, the fact that you're both here today shows you're both cowards.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what we played. Now I'm curious, like, what sports did you enjoy watching as kids, and what did anything evolve there? Has your taste in what you like to watch in sports changed over time? Let's start with you on this one, Colby.
I've always been most involved in watching football. So that was kind of always my thing. I wasn't bad at football when I played, but I definitely wasn't good. And so like that kind of fulfilled my love of football, but not enough, I guess. So football was kind of what I watched the most. And I would watch basketball to a lesser degree. And I feel like when I was younger, I watched a lot of baseball because I was super into baseball when I was younger. So I used to watch a lot of baseball. I used to go to lots of baseball games when I was younger. Yeah, and that's really it. I tried to watch hockey a little bit just because I loved that so much. But that it wasn't anything like the Mighty Ducks movies, so it didn't really hold my attention. So yeah, and today I don't watch baseball anymore except for the World Series. On occasion, I'll watch like a game if there's a team I care about. So basically just the Dodgers. And then mostly I watch football and basketball nowadays. I don't watch any pro sports really, though. I like super watch college football. I don't watch any pro football. And I partway watch college basketball and partway watch NBA.
Cool. Jordan.
Let's see. So my dad played football in college, but that didn't really carry over to us watching football, surprisingly. Going back to the Bulls and Michael Jordan, like we watched that just because it seemed like they only ever played the Jazz. And that's because my dad was from Utah, so he liked the Utah Jazz. And so that's when we really watched it. And that was the later years for the Bulls as well. So we really got into that and watched all of the Jazz in the finals or any of the postseason. And that was huge. So whenever the games were on, everybody knew we were there, we were watching. But besides that, we didn't really watch too many sports at home. So for the most part, I don't really have any teams that I'm like a huge fan of, but I enjoy watching sports. Like I do think it's fun, but I don't make it a point to go sit down and watch them. But if there's a game on, if there's a football game or a basketball game on, I'll usually watch it. I think I'll watch football more so than basketball. I'm not a huge fan of the NBA, so don't really have a pull or a draw to watch that. So yeah, I'd say if it's a football game on, I will watch it. But besides that, not too many sports I'm actively watching.
Yeah. When I was growing up, like basketball was definitely my favorite sport to watch. And I think, similar to Colby, I was really only interested in college sports. I had this whole... Well, actually, I take that back. As a kid, like any kid, it's fun rewatching The Last Dance. I feel like most kids... I don't know, maybe I'm making this up, but I feel like most kids were into watching the Bulls, or at least into Michael Jordan. He was such a legend. So I remember growing up watching Michael. I also the only memories of finals appearances, I don't remember anything before the Jazz. But then as I got older, I was only really interested in college basketball. I don't know why, but my dad was a huge Duke basketball fan, so I decided to become a Duke basketball fan, which is an easy team to root for because they're always competitive. And I think I also liked being a contrarian, especially growing up in Tucson. Like they had played in the championship and Duke had won, and so there's just a lot of bad blood there. So I liked, I think, going against the grain there, which was funny because when I went back to school for my master's, I went to Virginia, and I was like, well, I can't remain a Duke fan anymore because I'm now going to a school in the same conference as Duke. So I had to swear off my allegiances to Duke, which was actually not that hard to do when I was dropping a ton of money and going into massive student debt. It's like when Virginia won the championship, I was like, this makes it a little bit easier as I pay a small fortune every month to pay off my student loans. So, and by the way, since there was no March Madness this year, Virginia remains the reigning champions. In case anyone had forgotten, first number one seed to get knocked out in the first round, and then also the first team to do that and come back and win. So, if you can't tell, I love watching Virginia basketball now. It was fun to go watch them. But football is something that would be one sport that I didn't really enjoy or really follow at all growing up as a kid. I really only started watching football when I went to college. Went to BYU, which BYU, maybe I'm wrong. BYU really doesn't have like, at least in my opinion at the time, like football was like the only program that was like really popular, but then Jimmer came around and people jumped on the basketball train. But obviously, like a school known.
And their volleyball team.
Yeah, and their volleyball team.
Their volleyball team is amazing.
The volleyball team is phenomenal. But who watches volleyball? I'm kidding. Actually, when volleyball's on, I don't mind watching it because it's actually amazing to watch on TV. Like, I'm just like blown away. Like, they'll have like how synchronized they are. They'll have like 4 people all going up in the air, like pretending like they're going to be like spiking the ball, and it's just like amazing to me that they're that in sync where they can pull that stuff off.
It's intense. I have to say, in the Olympics, beach volleyball is like my favorite sport to watch.
Beach volleyball is amazing.
Super intense. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But the one thing I would say that has also changed is I've become more of a fan of professional sports versus college sports. I still watch them both. I think I fell in love with the NBA again. My wife was working for the Phoenix Suns for a few years right after we got married, so we got free tickets to see all the games. I think I've seen every single NBA team play. I've been to a ton of games, and so it was just hard not to get sucked into it. And so it was really fun. So I'm a big Phoenix Suns fan. They have not made the playoffs since I've been rooting for them. There is no end in sight to that drought. So I feel like I'm kind of like a Chicago Cubs fan where, like, you know, I feel like I'm so hardcore. Like, yeah, man, I'm like sticking with this team, like no matter what, like no matter how bad we are, like I'm such a loyal fan. Therefore, like you should respect me. And then I also like the Arizona Cardinals, so I'll watch them every now and then. But lately, I've been getting more and more back into running, and I've like found myself randomly like watching like a lot of running videos on YouTube. I'll watch like track competitions, cross country competitions. I don't know why. It's just like funny, or it's like kind of fun to me to watch. And I think like running is like one of those weird sports where like you kind of watch and you're like, oh, but like couldn't that guy in like second place, couldn't he or she like have just gone like 1 second faster? It's just like 1 more second. Like, why couldn't you have pushed it a little bit harder? And now that I'm like getting back into running, I can appreciate it a little bit more. Like I just ran my first half marathon. And when I came back to work, one of my coworkers like asked me, what was your time? And I was like, I can't remember what time. It was like 2 hours and like 2 minutes. He's like, ugh, like you're so close. Like you couldn't have. And I was like, no, like I really couldn't. Like I remember like like after I ran like 10 miles, like I checked my pace and I was like just over 2 hours. I was like, that's it. Like I'm gonna like go for it. Like I can do this. But then after I ran 1 more mile and made it to mile 11, I was like, I cannot do this. You just run out of gas. So I'm rambling now.
I can get where you're coming from with the professional sports. I think I like professional football more than basketball. In my eyes, like and Max and I were talking about this. I love watching baseball at the park, but if it's on TV, it's hard for me to get into because it's not one of those sports that I've grown up with watching consistently. But between basketball and football, no, I can watch like any football game, I feel like. But basketball, I don't know, it unless it's like March Madness, it just feels repetitive to me. As far as like having a team and like following a team, I feel like it's a lot easier to do that with football just because of the way their games and season is structured. It's just so much easier to like get behind the one game a week, and it's usually on the weekend. And so like that Monday, it's like, oh, did you catch the game? Right. XYZ game. And it's a lot easier to look for that game, or watch a couple games on Sunday and just follow that. Whereas with basketball, it's like constant games all the time. And so it's, unless like that's really your thing, it's hard to follow. Like even if I said, hey, I really want to start following the Suns, it would be like, okay, well, what's their schedule? When are they playing? Like, it's just,
There's no consistency.
No, and so it's a lot harder to follow. Same with college football. I love college football. Every Saturday you can just sit and watch games all day, and that's just a blast to me. And that's what makes it following football easier in my eyes. And obviously, yes, there's Thursday games, Monday games. There's a variety of other games, but for the most part, it's Saturday college, Sunday pro, and it's just easier to follow, in my opinion.
I agree. I think that's why I like the college sports better. It's more manageable. You're not spending your whole life watching games or trying to keep up. And like with the NBA, like there are so many games, and I feel like if the coaches are at a point where they're like, we're not going to play our best player just because we want him to rest, you're just like, why am I watching? And so I'll watch a little bit when the playoffs start and then the finals and stuff in the NBA, but I don't really watch the regular season unless I'm like super bored or just need some background noise or something, take my mind off things. As far as the NFL, I don't watch the NFL like at all. I don't even watch the Super Bowl, which I'm sure is blasphemy. I don't watch the Super Bowl either.
Why? Why don't you watch it? There must be a reason. Everyone enjoys watching the Super Bowl.
I don't typically watch sports on Sundays, and the Super Bowl is always on a Sunday, and I'm always like, I'll just watch it like the next day, but then I never actually take the time to go back and watch it. When I was growing up, like we used to watch for like 3 years straight. We were avid Niners fans, with Steve Young and Jerry Rice, and like we watched the 49ers all those years, and since then I couldn't even pick a team that I like followed in the NFL, really. So it's just kind of like whatever. And in the NBA too, I don't really have a team.
Become a Suns
which
fan.
Is
just don't become a terrible Jazz fan. For all
no,
our
I'm not.
Terrible Jazz listeners out there. They're just the worst.
I live in Utah, and I've been dissuaded from being a Jazz fan. I was a Jazz fan back, in the John Stockton and Karl Malone era. I had a John Stockton basketball jersey, and I had a Michael Jordan basketball jersey because I loved both sides of that whole thing. But yeah, I don't have a team. Like I'm kind of a Suns fan, kind of a Clippers fan, but I'm not super loyal to either one. So I'm all about the college games because it's more manageable. Players aren't changing all the time. I feel like, I don't know, it's weird. Like the Jerry Seinfeld bit is kind of really true. You're rooting for the clothes, right?
Yep.
Because, the players change so frequently and go to different places, and then you hate them, and it's just kind of silly.
I think having a team definitely makes a big difference, though, because like I became, not only when my wife started working for the Suns, but also when I married into the family, like they were all big Suns fans. Like my father-in-law would buy in on some season tickets, so they would go to games pretty regularly as a family. So they're all Suns fans. So I think having a team definitely makes it more interesting. But if you're just like casually watching and just like it makes it a little bit harder to get invested into it for what it's worth.
So I grew up in Tennessee for a little while, till I was about middle school age. And while I was there at the University of Tennessee, Peyton Manning was quarterback there. We watched some games. I think we went to a game, actually. And so I started to like Peyton Manning as a quarterback. And so I kind of followed the player versus following a team. And so that, I don't know. I think that's, especially as someone that's not super into watching sports regularly, it's kind of nice to be like, oh, when are the Colts playing or when are the Broncos playing, right? Because I know Peyton's going to be playing, and I know he's going to put on a good game, for the most part, right? So that was kind of that's kind of my outlook to sports. I mean, and I don't have very many sports stars that I am following anyway, so it makes it easier.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, I'd watch a Saints game before I watched another team just because I like Drew Brees and Taysom Hill, and so yeah, I can't think of a basketball player that I like enough to just watch their games no matter what team they're on, though. There's so many that are super good anyway, so.
Yeah, that was Jordan. That was actually where I was going to go next. I don't know why. But actually, that's like kind of one of my pet peeves. Is like when someone's like, "Oh, I'm just a LeBron fan," you know. So like, well, it's like you can be a LeBron fan, but it's just like you're just like kind of like rooting for like the best player in the league, and therefore like I don't know. It's just like it's a weird concept to me, which I don't think is as satisfying or can't be as rewarding as like rooting for a team, no matter what. It's like, well, I like this one person. Well, why do you like him? Well, because he's really, really good and is always like in the playoffs. It's like I don't know. Where I feel
like I said, you watch you watch him on the Colts, you watch him on Broncos. You know it's going to be a fun game. You know
sure.
he's gonna have some. It's gonna be fascinating to watch him play as quarterback. So I don't think I would be the type of person to be like, well, oh man. Colts aren't going to the playoffs this year, so I'm done watching football. It would just be like, oh, wow, hey, they happen to be in the playoffs, so, maybe I'll watch them. I don't know. I get what you're saying. I get what you mean that, like, it's a cop-out.
Bandwagon feeling. It's like, I like this guy because he's good, therefore I'm a fan of this team because they're good. But it's like you don't really have any loyalty to it. Like,
why do you like the team over the player, though? What's the difference?
I think there's a big difference. Like, I live here in Phoenix, Arizona, so like it's like part of the community. It's like part of like the culture of the city. Or like I went to University of Virginia, like I was part of like that culture and community. But like if I'm cheering for,
what about Duke?
There and
Did you live in North Carolina?
I did not, and that was like why I think it was a little bit easier for me to be like, I can't really like look myself in the mirror and like keep cheering for Duke, because I would make the same argument but realized it was incredibly hypocritical of me. So that made it a little bit easier just to be like, I have no ties to that school. But that would be an example of cheering for the school, not for the player. But I mean, sure, you can do it, but I don't know. I just find that weird when people, because I
get it.
I think the root of it is like people hop on some kind of bandwagon, versus like they're part of like the community or like the team or like have some kind of connection to it, and that's why they cheer for it. Which again, there's no right answer here.
It seems super weird to me to like be super in love with a player, and then they move to another team, and all of a sudden you're not rooting for that player, right? They play against the team where you're from, and you're like, oh, I can't like you now. Like
I wouldn't say you can't like them,
but you know what I mean? Like, I inherently dislike the Lakers.
Same.
But, yeah, I mean, everyone hates the Lakers, right? So
they should.
But I loved Steve Nash, right? Loved Steve Nash. And they went to the Lakers, and I'm like, I feel so weird about this because I really dislike the Lakers, but Steve Nash is dope. So, like, what? I don't know. It was really a confusing, emotional time for me.
Yeah, that was weird. But then he kind of like burned the Lakers to the ground. Like they paid him a ton of money, and he played like 5 games, so it's all good. No, but I know what you mean. I don't know, for whatever reason, I don't struggle with that too much. Like I enjoy watching Kawhi Leonard play. I have no love for the Clippers, but it's like I can appreciate and enjoy watching them play. And I'll like certainly when the Suns are never in the playoffs, so like there will be teams that I would prefer to see win over others, and mostly because of the cast of characters on whatever that team is, or if they're like an underdog or something. But I could never like say like I'm a fan of that team. But
and see, because of this dichotomy and this dilemma, I think that's where college sports kind of gets its appeal, is that for better or worse, the loyalty is much stronger.
For sure.
There's definitely drawbacks to that too, but that's kind of what makes that a little bit more fun.
Well, yeah. I mean, like with college, you went to the school, like you spent, like you're far more absorbed into that community and that culture than I would say like, living here in Phoenix and being like a Suns fan. Like it's not, it's very different. So you're definitely onto something there.
Well, and it's just easier because with college, they're good players, but they're amateur, so to speak, right? I mean, they're learning the professional side of the game, and so to have a home college team, I think is a lot easier to get behind,
right?
Because it kind of doesn't matter who's on the roster,
Right.
It's like we know that the coach and the athletic department is just doing everything they can with what they have to work with. Whereas with professional sports, it's like, look, could I be a diehard Detroit Tigers fan? If I lived in Detroit, I mean, maybe. But when you have a really bad record, like it gets very difficult to stay involved in the sport if you're constantly losing. And who knows? I just pulled the Tigers out of nowhere. I don't know what their latest winnings have been like. But if your team constantly loses, it's like, okay, this is just, it's not fun anymore.
That's true. That's why I've never been a Cardinals or a Suns fan, really.
Hey, the Cardinals went to the NFC Conference Championship like 5 years ago. So they've actually had some pretty decent. And they were in the Super Bowl like, when was that? I guess that was probably like 12 years ago. That's more than a lot of teams can say for themselves.
That's
Especially
true,
in, like, the
but it's
Patriots
also
era.
a lot less than a lot of teams can say too. So it's give and take.
Oh, of course, but I don't know. Yeah, just making it to the Super Bowl is an awesome accomplishment. So
That's true.
And they were so close. And then when was it? It must have been like 2014, 2015. I think it was in 2015. They went to the conference championship, and they had a really great season. And they just got smashed by the Panthers. But
yeah.
And the Suns like went to the Western Conference. I mean, during the Nash era, I mean, they went to the Western Conference Finals. They had some really good playoff runs, but ever since Nash left, I mean, the Suns just have a horrific owner. Robert Sarver, if you're listening to this, sell the team, please. Do us all a favor. But yeah, and that can really make being a fan of like a professional sports team extremely challenging. Like if it's just managed by an idiot who doesn't do anything right, that is just a clown, then I mean, it's like, what do I still stay loyal to this team, despite the fact that they're constantly making the wrong decisions? And I don't know.
So what do you think that is? Are they legitimately incompetent? Because someone with that much money, I feel like, can't be completely incompetent.
Oh yeah. I think you can be, because like you can be competent in like one thing, but not in like another. Like and I mean, look at Michael Jordan, for example, like best player ever. No question about it, but like he has not done a good job of running the Hornets, and the same as the Suns owner, like, or even like look at the Knicks owner. He's like probably the worst owner in sports. All these guys are insanely wealthy and super. A lot of them are very successful businessmen, but running a sports team is just a whole different ball game. Like it's easier said than done, in my opinion.
Oh, I'm sure that's true. Yeah, just a curious question.
Yeah, for whatever reason. And I think part of that is like, they try and apply whatever, like their way of doing things like in business or what makes them successful outside of like running a sports franchise, and like those methods and like those frameworks don't always hold true in sports. So yeah, it can be, it's tough, it's challenging. But anyways, so I kind of look at like, when we talk about like the big sports, and I kind of use like professional sports as like my guiding umbrella here. Like, hey, like here's like kind of like the big sports organization. So you've got football, you've got baseball, you've got basketball, and you've got hockey. Do you guys think during our lifetimes that there could be like another big mainstream sport that could like break through? Like, will soccer ever get there? Will cricket ever get there? Or, I mean, I guess like golf is kind of there. But like, do you think we'll have like another like big sport that will become like normal to like watch and part of like our everyday lives, like some of these other ones?
Well, if Ultimate Frisbee doesn't get there, then I don't know what we're doing as a society.
You got to throw NASCAR in there too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess I'm going to incur a lot of wrath on the social media after this episode goes out. Yeah, I guess I left out a lot.
They just had a race.
They did?
Of COVID. Yep. They're the first sport back.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you're locked in the car. So, as has been established, I've lived in England, and while I was there, cricket was big. It was kind of fun. I mean, when we moved there in the summer, and like there was nothing on TV, and we had nowhere to go. And so we watched, like, there was a cricket like championship or something going on, and so we just watched it, and I kind of got into it. It was fun, but I mean, that something like that. I mean, they're giant fields, so I don't know where you'd put them. You can't just plop them into baseball fields because I think they're a lot bigger than baseball fields. There'd be a big learning curve to that. I would see something like maybe rugby taking hold faster, but with football as major as it is, I don't see rugby coming into the picture so much. But both of those are fun sports to watch, I would say, for sure.
Esports.
I mean, I definitely think esports is going to become more mainstream for sure. I think.
But will it ever be like mainstream?
I don't think it will. I don't think it will be on the level of like baseball, basketball, football ever, simply because like the level of skill is just not comparable, right? To be at the top level and get to the NBA, you have to spend your whole life. Like, everything you do has to be basketball, right? You have to spend your entire life working to get there. Whereas video games, I mean, to get good at esports, you could pick up a game and, I don't know, however long, 6 months to a year, get super good, and
I don't think you understand.
A lot of the skills
I kind of
transfer
disagree
over.
with you. I think there's
They've got a disabled list for the team. I mean, I don't know. It's pretty high level for sure. Because I mean, there's professional esport teams. Like I forget what, but like it's not the Lakers, but like whoever owns like the Lakers stadium like purchased an esports team. It's becoming a big thing for sure. And I mean, there is a prime, just like there's a prime time for an athlete's life and when you're going to get the best years out of them. There's a prime time for esports players as well. They oddly, they get hand issues, like with playing on the keyboards and mice so much. I mean, I can see it.
I definitely think there's a lot of similarities, but it's just, I don't know. I just feel like it's different. Like, if you're playing Halo professionally, you could take a year to dedicate to, I don't know, another game and probably become a pretty good pro at that game. Whereas, like, if you take a professional tennis player and drop them into professional basketball, it's not going to translate, or the other way around. I just feel like it's so sports that athletes play are so specialized and take more commitment because it's not just your brain and your hands, it's your brain and your hands and your legs and your cardio and all of it put together. So I just feel like it's not quite to that level.
I agree with you that I think like there's probably like really good
there's
video game
intricacies.
players can like move from game to game to game. Where I don't agree with you though is like,
So I don't think they could even do that, really.
well, there's some like who can like for example with like fighting games, like like they can go from like Street Fighter to Mortal Kombat like decently well.
Maybe there, but you couldn't move from that to a Dota or something,
Maybe.
and then
Well,
to
not
a
something
similar
that's
game.
like completely strategy based, probably,
But
something that maybe is more about timing and quickness.
I just think like it's extremely good. Like, so a good example is like I had spent more time than I care to admit playing League of Legends, and there was like a time in my life where I was like playing ranked and I was like trying to climb up the leaderboard ladder as like high as I could, and I think I made it into the gold rankings, which was meant like I was like in the top 25%. But I couldn't even like keep climbing above that. And like if you want to be like a professional, you've got to be like in the top 0.1%. So like it's similar to sports. Like tons of people play, and again, like I spent a ton of time playing, and that's as high as I could get.
But you also had a job,
Well, that's what I mean is like these people like like it's not like something you can casually like you've got to like be all in like similar to an athlete. Like it's like a full-time plus.
And they've got sponsorships, and like they're being paid to play. I mean, I absolutely understand where you're coming from. I think it will become as mainstream, but it's going to be a completely different audience, right?
I agree.
It's not going to be on ESPN very likely.
Well, it has been on ESPN lately, though. That's what's been mind-blowing to me is, like, I've seen, like, League of Legends and, like, Street Fighter on ESPN 2, like, during, like, fairly normal hours of, like, the day. Like, and I'm just like, what is going on in this world that or, like, Overwatch, they've played that, too. It's like, what? We're showing this on ESPN 2 in, like, the middle of the day?
During COVID or not?
No, even before COVID.
I mean, I've seen like StarCraft and
I've seen StarCraft,
on ESPN, but I think they'll probably have once it does get big enough, I could see it being a separate branch of ESPN, ESPN or something. I don't know, something so that
ESPN.
Yeah, so you'd have a dedicated channel or source from ESPN dedicated to esports. I mean, I think. I don't know. I think eventually that will get there, but it'll be a different audience. You're not going to have your every weekend, tailgater getting into Overwatch.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I feel like because of the audience, it won't ever go mainstream like sports has. Like it's not. I don't feel like. My opinion is it's not going to be like a network television thing, because these people are all nerds and are internet savvy and stuff. It's going to be all online stuff, and it's just for those niche people. It's not going to make it onto primetime airwaves. Is my thought, like classic team sports would.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Colby. And I think the other thing that's more challenging for video games to become more mainstream is like every video game's a little bit different. Like every video game's almost like a different sport. And it's like hard for people to like want to invest the time to understand what's going on. Like if you just threw League of Legends up and someone, like everyone's like, wait, what is everyone doing? And like, what are these different characters? And like, what's the objective here? Like, how do the rules work? Like people just won't. It's a bit of a learning curve to expect on behalf of your viewers.
And there's so many games, and like I feel like the rules of like football are pretty complicated. But when you then you look at like a game like StarCraft, and it's like way more complicated for people to be able to understand every facet of what's going on. And you need that kind of fandom of people who get into every facet of what's going on to be able to have it go super mainstream, I feel like.
But you could say, I mean, you've got these categories of games, and once you have a rough understanding of a King of the Hill style shooter game, you could probably start watching Battleground, and as well as Fortnite, and plus and so, but I know there's people that certainly lose interest in football because they don't understand the rules, right? Because
but you see, when you look at football, there's really one source, obviously the XFL now, but there's really there's really only one place to go for it, right? Where and those are the rules that you know and understand. Whereas if you want to watch a shooter game, you've fragmented that whole fan base, because some people are going to be more into this one, and that's what they put all their energy into understanding, and some people will be in this one. So you're never going to get huge swell of fan base enough, I think, to make it in one specific game. And I could be wrong. Maybe one specific game will go super mainstream, but I think it would be very limited. It would be like one or two games that maybe got mainstream, if anything.
Well, and it's hard to get certain games, even though they're competitive and like a lot of people stream them online and stuff. It's hard to get them into a like a tournament style. Some games translate really well into that, like Counter-Strike, but other games, they suffer even though they might have a massive following. So it would be hard to structure a league around certain games.
The one thing I do see though is that, like, the reason I don't think like cricket or rugby will catch on in the US, there's just so much overhead, right? To compete with the viewership of the NBA and the NFL, there's you have to have tons and tons of money, and the overhead for esports is much smaller. There's so much less that goes into that.
That's a good point.
In that sense, they probably have a better chance of breaking into the mainstream than like a little known sport from somewhere else that's actually like a physical team sport.
Yeah. Barriers to entry are pretty low. I didn't even think about that, but that's a really good point. Unless they can repurpose like existing like arenas throughout the country, but it's yeah, that's a disaster. I didn't think about
Yeah,
that.
the only like physical sports I can see getting bigger in the U.S. are just different formats of the popular ones already, like arena
I could see
football.
soccer, maybe, which is already pretty popular, but I could see soccer becoming more and more mainstream. And it's so mainstream everywhere else. And like I remember when I was in South America, I mean, it was amazing to me. Like people would like there'd be like this little TV at like a bar or something, and there'd be like 50 men, like all like just like standing in the street watching this game.
Yeah,
And I
just
think it's
because of
gotten
the
more.
global influence, it's
Right.
so popular everywhere else. But like arena football, 3-on-3 basketball, those might have a chance in the U.S., but I don't think anything outside of those. I actually would count soccer as one of the big sports in the
Yeah,
U.S. I think
probably.
it's pretty big already.
It is, but like I don't feel like I see.
I feel like
Like,
it's
if I
on the
turn-
level with hockey, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good comparison, actually. Hockey. Huh. Alrighty, I'm going to close this down with one last question, and this is a chance for you guys to get philosophical, and we'll keep it short and to the point. But sometimes I like think about this when it comes to sport. Like I feel like a weirdo sometimes when I'm watching sport. I'm like, why do I care? Like, what am I doing here? Like watching like other people play a game, and like for some reason, like I'm super into it and like cheering for them. Like it just feels. I don't know. When you kind of like pause and think about what you're doing, it feels a little weird to me. I don't know if you guys have ever had that experience. So I thought it'd be fun to have you guys talk a little bit about that and just like why do we care about sports? Why are they so popular? What makes it such a great part of our culture? So Jordan, let's have you close us down with your response to that question.
I mean, I think humans just they live for competition. I mean, I think it is, ingrained into each of us. Like even in like the simplest of things, people compete, and I think sports allows us to get behind a team. I mean, and not only are we competing, but also just having something to get behind and an effort to cheer behind is something that is just I don't know how else to say it. I think it's just ingrained into each of us that we want a team to rally behind, we want a purpose to rally behind, and I think we can connect with that with sports. And it's not just having someone to root for, but it's also enjoying that sport, right? You know what that sport's about. Maybe you've played it. Maybe you are reliving some of your glory days, and you just enjoy it, and you latch on to other people also living that dream, right? And so I think that's probably what it boils down to for the most part.
Yeah, Uncle Rico.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had
Go ahead,
that
Colby.
same existential crisis where I'm watching sports and I'm like, why do I have these feelings like right now? Why am I getting worked up about this? This is really silly. I do the same thing with video games. I'm like, if I like keep dying and I like trying to get something done, I'm like, I am putting my time and effort into accomplishing something for a feeling of accomplishment. Why don't I just go actually accomplish something that means something? So
Boo.
I know, right? But I still play video games, so there's definitely value in it otherwise. But yeah, I think the competition thing is huge, especially in males. I think that's inborn in us, is we have to compete. It's part of our chemical makeup. The other thing that I think is the hyper competency. So we like to compete, we like the competition, but we also like to be witnesses to and feel connected to the hyper competence of these people who have like put their heart and soul into becoming really good at this amazing physical feat. And to be able to see like these people are the absolute best in the world at doing this one thing. So I think that's a big part of it, is the hyper competency, and people are drawn to that hyper competency. It's why, celebrities and successful business people are so popular as well. It's that they're so competent, and we look up to that. We aspire to that, even though we know sometimes it's an impossible standard, like with sports, like we're never going to get there, but we like to think that, we could be related to that. And then I also think the camaraderie of sports and rooting for something with a group is a big thing, especially like in the world where things go wrong and things happen and they have big implications, whereas in sports you can get behind a team with a group, and I mean, some people do take it way too seriously, but really a loss is not that big a deal. You know, you go about your day the next day. So the stakes are high but not ultra high, and so we can get super into it because the stakes emotionally are high, but the stakes, you know, in real life are not that high. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
I think there's one area we haven't talked about, which is like the Olympics as well, right? Like that's kind of another level of having a team that you're backing because it's your country. But there's that aspect to it of having that team and that country that you're cheering for to do the best. But then there's also like this is, are these the most mainstream of sports? Not all of them, for sure, but they're the pinnacle of the best, you know, athletes out there performing those sports. And it's just fun watching those athletes work their magic, you know, just shaving hundredths of a second off of their times, and, you know, just really getting into how far can they push their bodies and how best can they be, right? Where is their limit? Like, I think that is really an admirable part to sports that also draws us in.
Yeah, I think that like, it's so cool because even if they're not from your country or whatever, it's amazing to watch that and be like, that person right there, that is literally the fastest man currently living, or that is the fastest woman that is alive right now. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's the hyper competency thing. It's really cool to witness that, I think.
Yeah, I think you guys hit on, I won't repeat your points, but I think you hit on a lot of the things that I was talking about. I think, like, Colby, like what you were saying about, like, we do like adversity and we do like competition. We like overcoming the odds. I think it's a little bit different, like playing a video game, because like you're still a little bit more in the driver's seat. Whereas like when you're watching a game, you really have zero control over that outcome. But it's still fun to watch. But I also think what you guys are getting at there is like, it is awesome to like watch people like at like the highest levels compete, and I think there's a lot of stories that come along with that, and I think that's what really brings out like a lot of the intrigue. Like, I remember when LeBron James went to the Miami Heat a few years ago, which kind of made like a big to-do about it, and that annoyed a lot of people. And then when he showed up in Miami, him and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh like pompously said that they were going to win like 8 championships. They won 2, by the way. And I think like it's like, oh, well, now like there's some villains, you know, like there's some people to like root against, and so that just adds more intrigue and it adds entertainment to it. It's not just as simple as watching sports, but there's a lot of stories that go behind the scenes. You watch someone like Michael Jordan, where it's like, hey, this guy really like unbreakable? Like, can he really just will his team to win every single time? And there's just a little bit of intrigue there. So I think all excellent points that you've raised. This was fun to talk about and hear a little bit more about your preferences for sports and what your background what your backgrounds have been with sports. So, and hopefully you, all our listeners out there, had a good time listening to us, as we like to say in our introductions, naively talk about this subject. But if you did like it, go ahead and like the podcast, subscribe, rate, and review. And feel free to follow us on Twittergram. That's we're gonna have to go invent that.
Nerd.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at the Couchboard. And follow us over there. And we'll look forward to seeing you all on another episode. But gentlemen, have a wonderful evening. Good chatting.
Peace.
Indeed. Thank you.